Val DuVernet, Senior Director, Digital Strategy and Optimization at McKesson, a $70 billion publicly traded company advancing health outcomes for all, is an e-commerce veteran, having worked in B2B, B2C, and B2B2C environments. With a strong focus on user experience and product management, Val is an intrapreneur who has led e-commerce and marketing teams for McKesson, Advance Auto Parts, and Target. As an entrepreneur, Val has also owned businesses herself as a web and marketing consultant, in association management, and in the floral industry. Whatever the environment, Val's goal is to leverage technology, content, and media to present relevant products and experiences, displaying customer obsession, building customer advocates, and delivering revenue growth. This is a podcast about heroes, which is why you're here, Val. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah. So before we dive in, would you tell us, how do you start your days?
Well, I am a creature of habit in the morning, I have to admit, and so I am up at 6, getting the dog out, and driving to Starbucks. Because if I don't have the Starbucks in the morning, I'm just not a happy girl. And it's really not about the caffeine. I just want to be clear on that. It's just like having the time. I like it in the winter when it's dark, and I can just drive in the dark. I've got a great team at Starbucks, amazingly, who's always happy and says good morning, and I like to say good morning to them. I have a little time to myself. It's just a routine. I don't usually think of myself as a person with a routine, but that is definitely a routine that I have. And I feel funny when I don't do it. So that's the start of the day. And then usually I jump on the computer, I have to admit. So.
Same routine on the weekends?
Yes.
Yeah,
amazingly.
wow.
And at the same time, too. I'm like, shouldn't I be sleeping later? But it's just what I do. So, but I do think it's mainly about just having that quiet time and space in the car, my little bubble. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
So,
what are you thinking
about? Not that I've got so much going on all the rest of the time or anything. It's just, I don't know, something about having that insular space is nice for me.
Yeah. What do you think about when you're in that bubble in the car?
Oh my gosh, I do silly things sometimes, right? I mean, sometimes I'm like singing Broadway show tunes to myself, and and sometimes I'm like, oh boy, what a day I've got.
You've got a great voice.
Thank you.
You do have a great voice.
So, I mean, it varies. I think about how I don't have road rage anymore. I used to be a road rage person. I always like to qualify that by saying that it was reciprocal road rage. So I usually am not the starter, but if somebody pokes me a little bit, bam, there I am.
And how did you get over that?
I don't do that so much anymore. I actually had a friend call me out on it and give me some meditation tapes and say, Val, you don't have to be angry. It's okay. They can be jerks. You don't have to be one. So I don't think I was ever that big a jerk. And like I say, and it was always just reciprocal. So if somebody cut me off.
I like it. Okay, 2 follow-up questions. What is your Starbucks drink? I should know this, but I've forgotten because it's been a decade.
Oh, well, it has changed, so I just have to say, but it's a venti Americano with extra cream. So there you go.
Okay.
So it used to be a triple venti latte, and then I figured I don't need all that milk, so I just went for the coffee.
Simplify it. I like it. Okay, second question. Can we get you to sing for us in this half hour?
Oh my. I've got praying hands. Sure. Absolutely.
Nice.
I will sing something.
Okay, whenever you're ready, you can either jump in or we'll just give you a cue. And are you in your office?
I am. I'm in my office at my
So if you sing, are people going to stop by and throw roses into your...
I will admit that it is Friday, late in the afternoon, and so there are not a lot of people here. We're in kind of hybrid work situation. So it's come to the office when you need to collaborate and work with others. Otherwise, people are working from home. So I did have a larger meeting earlier this afternoon where we had a bunch of people come together. So that was fun, but there's not a whole lot of other people here right now.
Okay, so then you're definitely singing for us.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next question, and we like to start these this way as well, because this is a Heroes podcast, and if you've seen any Marvel movies or DC movies, you know that there's always an origin story. Will you share with us your origin story, Val?
Okay. Yes, I will. Thank you. So I did think about how this was going to go, because, you know, I'm older than your average bear, so it goes back a ways. But I'll start near the beginning, and mainly because I come from a business family. So, I mean, my dad was in the advertising agency business. I often refer to him as like one of the original madmen, you know. I mean, he had the 2 or 3 martini lunches, and he came home and was still in his white shirt with his tie and his sleeves rolled up, you know. So he was in the advertising business. My mom was in business, and so we at the dinner table, right, that's what we talked about. We talked about business and advertising and marketing, and so I grew up with it, and I worked for my mother. I mean, I was actually in the mailroom like when I was 6, right? So child labor, no. Yeah. But so, you know, I was always around it and always had a bit of the entrepreneurial spirit. So, you know, starting businesses when I was a kid and different kinds of things. And I had my first business was a car wash, right? And I wrote to Cadillac. I asked them for if I could get some of their posters so that I could put them up on the fence so that people knew that when they came to my car wash, their cars would look like this. And it's a riot because my family actually saved the letter that came back from Cadillac to me when I was 6 years old saying, "Thank you for asking for the posters. We're sending them under separate covers." So,
oh my gosh.
So, you know, so I always was interested in business and in marketing and in how can I serve, right? And I loved retail. I got into retail early, and of course I also was a bit of a ham, so I was into acting and singing, and I feel like I brought that, so I stopped that. People are probably happy, but I stopped that after a while. But I brought that, though, into business, right, and into my activities, just that reaching out to people, trying to be of service, trying to help people get what they needed. And that, of course, means commerce. It means doing business, transactional. Yeah, marketing has always been in my life, and I've loved it for a long time. Because I was in retail then, it was transactional, got into computers and digital, and so ended up in the e-commerce world and have been here for a long time since then. So
one of the other things I love about your background, Val, is that you've repped artists, which is a special brand of marketing on its own. So the creativity that you showed from a very early age and reaching directly out to Cadillac, because of course they'll want to send you posters for your car wash, through to, you know, you had one of the Voice or America's Got Talent folks for a while on your roster.
That was The Voice. So the first season of The Voice, there was a singer named Vicky Martinez who was on there, had a big voice, and I've always, that's another thing that I've enjoyed doing. So because of my background in entertainment, I love entertainment. If I can hook onto something, you know, and help somebody out. So I reached out to her management, and they probably thought I was a little bit of a crazy. I actually know they did because they told me that. But I was like, you know, does she need she's got a lot of fans, you know, maybe we could put up a website for her. And I remember that they happened to be in Minneapolis where I was one day, and they were like, okay, well, we can meet. And we met at a restaurant. The first I will say that we got along very well right away, right? But shortly afterwards, they got a phone call, right? And they were like, no, it's okay. I'll be there later. So they had had somebody call them away in case they didn't want to really talk to me anymore, right?
Yeah.
But they told them that I was okay and it was okay. They would
right.
talk with me. So anyway,
Good first date.
yeah, so I helped with that person and helped with a fan group of hers to promote her, and it was a fun time. And she's still at it, so there you go.
Got it. Awesome. Wonderful. All right. Well, anything else about that, Danny or Val, that you want to add? Or can
I was just going to tease you, and we can edit this out, but that was in the AAP days, and I remember 2010-ish, you sneaking off to the little enclaves to do your work because you had to turn the camera, your monitor away so people couldn't see you were working on Vicky's website.
Yeah, that's right. That's
definitely
right.
that part.
It's like, I have to launch this. They've got another show tonight.
Oh my
So
God!
cool.
But I mean,
I love that diversity
again,
of your background.
And the passion for all of that was just so exciting to watch, because when you go in on something, you go 100 million%, which is great.
Well, thanks. I think that's I do have a passion for things, and when I do have a passion for things, I do like to go all in, and I think that's an important thing. You know, when I think about my career and what I've done so far, I think I've always enjoyed getting in at the beginning, right, of something when there's not a lot there, and making something happen. And I think that, you know, I was fortunate to be able to do that in several instances, you know, and at the beginning it was kind of by happenstance that it happened, right? So I was with a company that was in digital signage before there was really digital signage, right? So they had contracts for, you know, the screens at 7-Elevens or on the subway platform in New York or in elevators, and it was news, weather, and sports supported by ads, and of course that was the business we were in, right, was selling the ads, but we created that other content so that we could be showing something and display the ads. You know, so that was early on in that, and it was exciting to me to be in something early. You know, and from there, I was able to join Target.com, not right at the very beginning, but early on, and that's where Danny and I met each other, by the way.
How long have you two known each other? How many years?
Oh my gosh, what?
Since 2006.
Yeah, 2006,
Wow.
So a number of years.
A long time. Yeah.
A long time. But
And it was very early days at Target.
It was
there was a .com,
days.
but barely. And
Yeah.
you were on the ground floor of all that stuff, the data synchronization with Amazon and, you know, the whole front end and everything. You were kind of the person for all
Data
that stuff.
synchronization with Amazon. I have to share that, yes, Amazon ran the back end of Target.com in the early days, right? So, and we were working with them and trying to figure out how things would happen. This was also the early days of product content and the whole concept of product attributes. And, you know, before that, it was people were selling stuff online, but it was, yeah, here's the item and here's the description, and maybe there was a category, but there wasn't all of this deep product information that there is now. And I remember sitting across they came into the office, and I remember sitting across the table going, what are you going to do with product attributes? I don't know. What are you going to do with product attributes? And it was like, none of us knew what we were going to do with them.
Nobody knew.
We knew that we thought it was important. We thought it could drive an experience on the site, but nobody was quite sure. And then, of course, you'd ask a question. It's like, oh, the algorithm takes care of that. And I actually went to their office in Seattle. My first trip out to their office to see them, I get into Seattle, I get to their office, I punch the elevator button, the door slides open, there's a guy standing in the corner of the elevator with a big binder, and I walk into the elevator and I look, and on the edge of the binder it says algorithm. And I'm like, it's the Amazon algorithm. I'm like, they must just plant him there, so anybody who
That's
comes,
hilarious.
It's the algorithm.
It's the algorithm. It's the algorithm guy. His name was actually John Stephen Algorithm.
I think so. And also, in a binder, a notebook binder, I don't know, there's something funny about
Yeah,
that.
you printed it out? Yeah. Oh, that's really funny.
So, but yeah, lots of early days in places, which is very exciting to me.
Innovation and figuring it out and pioneering.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've put yourself in a lot of situations where, even at McKesson, you've dealt with a lot of cutting edge pioneering. How are we going to do this? I don't know. We're going to just roll up our sleeves like your dad did, right?
Exactly.
Get it done.
And that's the fun thing. And like I say, maybe I stumbled into a place the first couple of times, or was fortunate enough. I joined Advance Auto Parts really through a referral of a great guy that I knew who referred me over there. And Mike Jacobs was his name. He's no longer with us, but he had a company that was all about product information, and he knew that catalog was going to be important, and so he recommended me to the folks at Advance Auto Parts as they were standing up that site. And I started to realize that this is what I really like. I like getting in early. I like building. And so even, then moving to McKesson, that, I saw an opportunity. Again, very well-established business, doing a lot of business, but still early in stages of some areas. And so being able to come in and help to stand up capabilities and move things forward, that's just always been exciting to me. And so now I like to call myself an intrapreneur because somebody's paying me. So,
I like that.
It's nice, huh?
Well, and I have to say, I've always loved the positive wake that you've left behind, because you do go in on the front lines and you are marching up the hill and you're the first person, and you're both guiding and leading, but you're also taking the shots, because it is hard stuff and you have to change culture and you have to get leaders to understand that digital is important and content's important and all that kind of stuff. But you teach everybody behind you on how it can be done. And whether it was, Sasha, Katie, or me back in the day at Target, or any number of people at Advanced Auto Parts, we were all learning from you as you were really paving the way, because it hadn't been figured out yet. You were kind of the first generation of people to go, okay, I think I know what it should be. Let's test it out. And
Especially
I think that was
in catalog.
100%. Yeah, which is really most of what we were doing in the early days of Advanced Auto Parts. We started with 25,000 SKUs and ended with 500,000 over the course of 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And I remember being at Advance, and your office was right next to mine, and you were constantly getting phone calls from people back at Target saying, what did you do with this? And how did you figure this out? And what was your strategy behind this? And probably a year went by before you were like, you need to stop calling me. Thanks. I've moved on. Figure it out for yourselves. Like, but that's the impact that you leave. It's pretty incredible.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoy trying new things. I enjoy bringing people along, and it has been a challenge, right? And sometimes it's something as simple as product content. I remember at Advance when we were building out that catalog and still about product information. And I had a guy who was a vendor of ball joints. And we're trying to develop, some information. And I call him up and I'm like, I'm just trying to get some product information. I can, tell you what I need to know. And he's like, it's a ball joint. What am I going to say? And I'm like, well, it must be made of something, and you're probably doing it to some kind of a standard, and it provides value because it does this by connecting to that. And he's like, okay, but he sent it. So
I guess. Yeah, right. that was so difficult. That was the early days, and we could not figure out how to get our vendors to help us tell their differentiation story.
Yeah.
And because they weren't, and none of our competitors were either, that's what we called you, Leslie, and we said, how the heck do we rank with Google when every single ball joint says the exact same thing, and all anybody cares about is your make and model? I think that was our first engagement with you, right?
Yeah, that was awesome. Such a fantastic team. And Val, one of the things I remember about you is that there's like, the Val is the same every day. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. You're like, dealing with these big, hairy problems. And I want to get into that in a minute, because I'm imagining there were themes or, problems that you saw at all of these different innovation points in your career. But yeah, no, thanks for the reference. It was a thrill, and y'all were just lovely with such smart people. Yeah. That was a big
I do have to challenge you, Leslie, though.
You have so many SKUs. Whew. Yeah.
I do have to challenge you, though, because there are two Vals. There's the Val that says, you know what? Let it break. If we don't let it break, our leadership is never going to realize how big of a problem it is. They're not going to invest in the tech. They're not going to invest in the people.
Okay.
Well, until the final hour, when it's 11 o'clock before it's going to launch, she's like, we can't let it break. Get everybody back. We got to fix this. We got to make sure. We can't afford to disappoint our customers. And that was a balance, right? Because you want to help our leaders understand the risks, but you were never going to let the customers down.
Yeah. Well, and that is really, and I guess, as I said earlier, that goes back to retail, right? And helping the customer, because it is all about the customer in the end. And are they getting what they need? Are they getting what they want? What else can we do to help them? And so, what can we provide for them? And it's interesting, I was thinking also, because now I'm focused on B2B, right? So a lot was early retail, B2C, Target, Advance, Auto Parts. And in the B2B world, this is one of the things that I almost feel like we need to keep reminding, because yes, it's still about the customer, but there's so much more than just the product in B2B, right? I mean, it's the whole procurement process, depending on the size of the customer that you have. What other functionality can you give them to help their customer? And so you're not just looking at the sale, but you're looking at what else do you do to help them help their customer. And of course, that's going to build loyalty. That's going to, ensure that they're feeling a relationship with you, and that all helps your business. But it's not just about final conversion spot anymore. And that's a balance that you have to do too, right? I mean, because ultimately, yes, it is about selling the product, but it's also about serving the customer, the needs, building the relationships, building the capabilities that help them do their job. So it's really an interesting advancement, I guess, shift from just B2C.
Mm-hmm. Well, and when you started at McKesson, you were B2B2C also too, weren't you?
Yes, right. Yeah. So here at McKesson, we do have a consumer-focused group, and then we are also selling to other pure plays who are reselling, and then, of course, we have our B2B business to the healthcare professionals. And so, working across all of those areas in one company has really been, it's been great fun for me, and seeing the different struggles at different points, helping the entire team here grow the businesses. It's been great. It's really and it's a wonderful. I just do have to say, I mean, it is a wonderful company, and one of the things that I really enjoy here is that ultimately it is about the patient for us, and we even have a line. It's not just a package, it's the patient, because it's ultimately about making sure that people are healthy, and what do we do to help people get there. So it's a nice plus to doing the business that I'm in.
Love that.
Awesome. Sounds like you're proud of that.
Yeah, very much so.
Got it. Can we dig into some of the problems that you've seen maybe recur over your career, or when you get in and you're an innovator in marketing, digital marketing, as you've been so many times? What are the problems, and what's in your toolbox that you pull out every time to handle those? Like, what can you share that could help folks dealing with that now or support the next generation of marketers?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that, in all marketing probably, but in e-commerce, in digital marketing, you often have to really bring folks along, and you have to convince people of the benefit of marketing. Because particularly, again, in the B2B world, if you have a sales team, hugely important, and yes, they're the front line, but what can marketing do to support, right? And how do you tell that story so that you can get the investment in furthering your capabilities? So, and that's been true, in other areas as well, because it's always about, is there an actual ROI to marketing? How do you prove out that you're actually bringing value? And of course, for a long time, it's like, well, it's pay-per-click, right? So we can show the clicks. And all of that is important. And you do certainly want to be able to prove that out and have the metrics to support what you're doing. But you still have to be able to tell the story up front to get the investment and to bring people along with what you believe can be done. So I think that if I was, talking to folks who are early in their career, I would say, you want to keep it real. That's a big thing for me, is to keep it real, to really be honest with yourself and with your partners about where you are right now, what you think you can do, and how you're going to get there. It doesn't help to shine anybody on. I don't know. This may be where a song comes in, but there's the old razzle dazzle, right? And you don't want to do that. You don't want to blind somebody with a bunch of razzle dazzle and then not be able to deliver on it. So keep it real. I think making sure that you have your foundations in place is huge, and that's hard to do, especially when you're coming into an existing business, because, it's, use whatever metaphor you want, right? It's a ship, it's sailing already, it's a train, it's going, and turning that ship, pulling the brake on the train, it's not going to happen very easily. And yet, if you don't have your foundations in place, it's going to be hard to really build. So, whether in e-commerce, it's product data, product content, having your customer base, understanding who they are, and having good customer data, those kinds of foundational things, you've got to build that. And if you don't have it, you've got to spend time on that so that can grow faster, because once you've got that in place, then you can build on top of it and you can do a lot more. So, making sure that you've got foundations in place is huge. And then I also, though, say, you've got to dream at the same time, and you've got to think of where is it that we ultimately want to be, and tell that story too. So it's like, hey, I'm realistic, here's where we are, here's the hard work we have to do, and if we do that work, here's where we can go. If you can tell that story, I think you can get people to come along with you, and even if they're skeptical, by having that foundation in place, you can start to prove it then, right? And show those metrics and show the actual results, and continue to get that investment.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And Danny, if you don't mind if I ask one more before I
go for it.
The floor again. So that's fantastic advice for folks coming into the field. If you were to talk to somebody who was maybe midway through their career and looking to make that next step up, what were some of the challenges that you faced, that you overcame, or the attitudes or the skill sets that made a difference for you to get to this level of leadership in your career?
Wow. I think that being willing to say, I don't know, but I can try, is important, because you have to put yourself out there, right? I mean, so maybe you've achieved a certain amount and you're at a place where you're, whether you're an individual contributor who's solid or you're leading a team, you still have to put yourself out there. And if an opportunity comes up, you've got to raise your hand and say, yeah, hey, I'll take that. I'll take that on. And maybe you're not sure exactly how, but if you show that initiative and then, of course, can show some results, that just makes people believe in you more. And the other thing, and I've had trouble with this in my life because I want to achieve, right? But you also want to make sure that if you are going to say that you can deliver something, that you can deliver it. I've always believed that I could deliver, but sometimes what I've had trouble with is timing and saying, well, we can get that done in 2 weeks, or we can get that done in a month, when no, we can't. And so then it's like somebody's expecting it in a month, and if you can't do it in a month, then that doesn't make anybody happy, right? You don't look good. They can't do whatever it is they were going to do. And so that's an opportunity that I've had to overcome. I've gotten better at it over the years, but again, I think that goes back to keep it real, right? I mean, if you're not sure, say you're not sure. If it's, I think I can do it by here, it's, I think I can do it by here. And just make sure that you do raise your hand and try.
Is there a burning topic? Is there something that you're passionate about, that you think about a lot, that you want to continue to be at the forefront of, that keeps you up at night?
Well, I think that it's actually a little bit broad, perhaps, but it is, are we on the leading edge? And if not, what do we have to do to get there? And so, I mean, that can be across many subjects, right? I mean, are we on the leading edge in terms of our use of data? Are we on the leading edge in terms of AI? Good old AI. Here's a question that I have for marketers everywhere. Have you really tried to use ChatGPT, or are you just saying that you have? But yeah, I think that's one thing. It's like, and how close are we? And then what do we need to do to get there? So, I mean, I don't have a specific thing, or sure, maybe there are some specific things that I'd like to do, but it still relates more to, are we delivering for our customers and on that leading edge so that we're invaluable? I mean, that's what you want to be to your customers, right? You want to be invaluable. You want them to feel like there's no point looking somewhere else. I have everything I need right here, and that's it's hard to be everything, right? So that's what I think about sometimes. I guess that's what keeps me up at night, whether it's a specific example or more in general. It's just still getting to that better place.
All right, Leslie, your turn.
Yeah, you've alluded to this. At least I've heard it in a couple of things you've said already. That it sounds to me like you've oriented yourself over your career to always be selling down, selling sideways, selling up, serving your customer. I've heard serving, and what sounds like selling to all the different levels with an authenticity and a vulnerability that sounds like produces better outcomes. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, interesting. Well, thank you for putting it in those words. I like that. And it's so interesting because I would not say that I'm a salesperson, but I'll go back to, a previous career and I'll bring it forward to it. But, I, at one point in my life, was in the floral industry. I would have, we did all kinds of things, corporate business, daily flowers, birthdays, and weddings. And we would have the bride come in, and I would talk to them about what they wanted and what it was going to be, and they would be all happy and leave knowing that we were going to do what they needed. And the day would, the week of the wedding would come up, and my staff would come to me and they'd say, Val, we've got this order form for this wedding, and it only says pink and white. What are we supposed to be doing here? and it would be that I would be able to instill confidence in the bride that we were going to take care of them without being specific, right? Without saying,
Wow.
And it will be this flower and this flower and this flower. And so I think that's both a good thing in terms of the customer, maybe not so good in terms of the people who have to actually do the production.
Execute on your
right,
secret
and
vision.
do the execution. But to your point of always selling, I do think that that's important, right? And it's instilling that confidence. It's having a vision that you can share and that people can buy into. Even if it's not 100%, right? Even if you don't have everything written down of exactly what it's going to be, but you can present a vision of what you're looking at and what they can expect in terms of that vision and feeling.
Yeah.
And I think, that kind of goes to storytelling, if you want to call it that, the ability to bring somebody along. And yes, you have to sell up, you have to sell sideways. It's always about bringing people along to where you need to get to. And
How did you learn how to do that? How did you get that skill, or how did it develop?
oh my, I mean, again, I think it was, part of just how I grew up. It was an interest in the arts, in acting, in telling a story that way, in music, in sharing a feeling, in just, again, growing up in advertising and marketing. It's always been about being able to share that story and have somebody believe you and in you. And you have to be able to deliver too, right? I mean, a trailer for a movie is only a trailer for a movie, right? If you go to the movie and it's like, wow, the best part of that whole movie was the 30 seconds in the trailer, that's not a good thing. So you have to be able to deliver too. But you got to get people in the door, right? You've got to get people to hand over their $5 and say, okay, I'll do that. Uh-oh, $5. Who spends $5 to go to a movie? Man, I got to find that one.
50 bucks if it's $1.
1964, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
So,
I love that. So the
yeah.
diversity of your experiences, your acting, your writing, so like lots of artistic bents and experiences and practice, and then
Yeah.
developing, what I hear also is developing the confidence over your career to be able to be straight and say, I don't know, or I think it's this much, but it's not like a bravado for sure, raw.
Right. And you've got to admit when it doesn't work, too, right? Because not everything is going to work, and you may be able to get somebody to come along, and sometimes it doesn't work. But then it's important, you go back to, and all of these things, you can look at agile development, right? I mean, you've got to have a retro. You've got to go back and look and see what worked, what didn't, what would we have done differently, what should we do again? And so if you can develop that, whether in a structured way like a retro, or at least in your own head of, not going to do that one again, and here's how come, then you can learn from it and keep moving forward.
Curiosity and continuous learning.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and separating from yourself to evaluate evaluate your performance. And look for
Absolutely.
improvements.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
you are your own manager. Love it.
Yeah, and that continuous improvement and continuous development. I mean, I've been working in product management, at times, and that idea of, continuous development and continuous learning and continuous discovery, right? Of always talking to the customer, always working with your developer partners, with your business partners, making small incremental improvements over time, seeing how those deliver. That's huge. And so you can apply that in a lot of different ways across business, across marketing, across e-commerce. But it's all the same thing. It's just keep it real, keep moving, keep improving, and know when you are and aren't delivering.
I think that's one of the biggest lessons that for sure. I think that's one of the most important things that I learned from you, with you as a leader, was you never led with ego. You've always been curious. And I think that's a differentiator for you, because a lot of people do come in and they say, I'm the person for the job. I know how this should go. I know how this should be. If it fails, it's not because I didn't know. And you always come in and you ask questions. And you even gave us freedom to fail back before that was a common phrase. And you just were always so willing to figure it out and say that you didn't know and be okay with it not being perfect the first time. And I have to say, that is pretty rare. You don't see that a lot. I think especially in marketing, because there's so much showboating and storytelling, it is a lot of ego, it is a lot of politics. And you've never had that. I mean, you've always tried to sell what you thought you could deliver, and it's never been showboating. It's incredible. You should be very proud of that.
Well, thank you very much. It's fun. That's the other thing.
It's fun.
You got to have fun, and you can have more fun when you're working together and you're discovering things together. And Danny, I mean, when we were at Target, remember our wall of shame? So we had a wall of shame, Leslie, that was about product information and terrible mistakes that we had made in how something was described or what it ended up looking like, and so we would put them on our wall of shame, never to be done again. Do not do these things again.
And some were funny, but some were downright inappropriate and unacceptable. And it was all mistakes, right? I mean, nobody was trying to goof up, but you string data together when it's in separate fields and attributes, and you don't preview it, which some people didn't, and then it goes live. Yeah. And you have to get that off the site yesterday.
The leading
but you have
edge
to own your mistakes.
hurts sometimes, huh?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yes,
well, and speaking of having fun, then we moved to California and we were in the office, and Val and I getting into a room can be a really cool thing creatively. It can also be very dangerous because we goof off and don't get things done. And I remember walking into the conference room at the end of the hall at AAP. I sit down, Val sits down, Val stands back up, she grabs a dry erase marker and she writes the word clever on the whiteboard and then crosses it out. She's like, we don't have time. We don't have time.
Going to the board, Danny. Going to the board. I've always liked going to the whiteboard. Yeah. Don't have time. Oh my. Yeah, there's a lot of history there, but a lot of fun, and I think that that's so important, right? I mean, it's all business. We all have to make a living. We all have to make sure our companies are successful. But we spend a whole lot of time with the people that we work with, and so you've got to be people and all of the good with that, and have some fun and enjoy what you're doing and enjoy each other. And so I'm fortunate in that I've been able to work with really good, fun people and help create that environment where people can be themselves and can, I mean, that's the one of the buzz phrases, right, is be your authentic self. And it's real, though. You do want people to be their authentic selves and feel comfortable with that and still get the work done. And it's much easier to get the work done when you can just be yourself and know that you can fail and succeed and everything in between.
Go ahead.
I want to ask two things. One is, looking back, Val, are there 3 beliefs or events or people, like anything that you can see really led to you being where you are and doing what you do? Like that were instrumental, pivotal, made a difference? Yeah.
Wow, that's a great question. So I will certainly say I'm going to go back to my mom. So my mom was one of those, I mean, she was a businesswoman through and through. And so I learned a lot from her. I learned some of what we were talking about staying even and handling things. I think I actually learned from her. And so that would be one person. And then I'm going to jump to a teacher I had when I was quite young who was a pottery teacher. So Jane Dalton. And I still do pottery. So it is one of the things that I love because my brain, and it used to be better, I used to be able to say I have a steel trap for a brain because, I could remember anything and I could pull it back out, and I don't know if it's just as you get older it gets a little mushier or stuff just has to start flowing through it a little bit easier. But this person, in teaching me pottery, it wasn't just about the pottery, but it's about focus and building something and molding something. But really focus. When you are sitting at a potter's wheel and you're centering clay and you're throwing a pot, I, at least, am totally focused on that. And so being able to pull that focus and move other stuff out of the way is very important, and I think that that's been a plus for me because I can use that focus in other things. And especially in today's world, my gosh, I mean, I'm sure that we all live through this, right? Of the emails and the instant messages and the meetings, and if you can pull your focus in, Danny, I mean, I know you've got a film background, and I think of that pulling focus with when you're filming, right? And you've got to do it, right? You've got to know just where it is and where to stop and where to go to. And if you can get your mind to do that too, that's a real plus. And then somebody that I mentioned a couple minutes ago, but Mike Jacobs, I think of as a mentor for me in this e-commerce world that I got into. He was a real card and, was a big personality, but knew his business and knew how to make a sale and knew what data was and how to make it work for a company. And I learned a lot from him. And like all of us, we all have our flaws. All of us have our pluses and minuses. And he did too, but he was a great guy, and I learned a lot from him. So there's a few people. Hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Can I go back to your mom for a second? Because as you mentioned your mom, all I heard in my head is, "Stand down, Miss DuVernet." Is that a real thing? Did I make that up, or is that from a story that you told me 20 years ago?
No, that is totally a real thing. So my mother had what we referred to as the Mrs. DuVernet voice. So when she got very serious, then her voice dropped, and she would be, very serious about what she needed to do and what she needed to get done. And I know I do that too. The more serious I am, the lower my voice goes. But there was a particular instance where she was dealing with somebody who, I think it was somebody who owed us money in this business, and she was talking to them and trying to find out what the problem was and why it wasn't there, and she was going and going and going, and all of a sudden, and I wasn't right with her, and neither were the other people in the office right with her, but we could hear her voice, and then all of a sudden we heard this giggle. And she could do this too, right? So she'd get a little girl giggle. So it's like, "I want to know why you're," and all of a sudden, and we're like, what is going on? And it was because she had been going at this guy so hard that he finally said, "Stand down, ma'am. Stand down, Mrs. DuVernet." And she loved it so much that she had to laugh. So, but yeah. That was the comment, Danny. So.
Okay.
Awesome.
Love it. Well, 20 years later, it's rattling around my brain.
Go.
That's amazing. Old friends are the best. Not that either one of you are old. So, looking back, Val, looking at your career, and it's a spectacular career, so there may not be anything. But is there anything that you see that you would do differently?
Oh my gosh. I'm I'm sure that there is a ton I would do differently. So I've talked about how I like to get into places early on, but sometimes I think I should leave sooner than I do. So it may be just a way I was raised or what have you, but I mean, I've stayed at companies where I think that I both could have impacted more companies and perhaps learned more faster, which is also something that I love to do, right? I mean, I love to learn. I sometimes think of myself more as a jack of all trades, but I won't say master of none. Maybe master of one or two. I think people need to think about that, right, in their careers. It's still transactional. What can I bring to the company? What then can the company bring to me? Am I continuing to learn? Am I continuing to thrive? And sometimes you have to weigh those things yourself. I mean, maybe you just want to get something done, so you're going to stay someplace even if maybe you're not learning as much, but you want to get something done. And that's fine too. But I guess my point is at least to think about it, right? Think about it and not just continue on because you're there and you can continue on. So looking back, I maybe should have thought about where else can I go? What else can I do? And not stay someplace quite as long. Not that I haven't enjoyed my time places, but I think that's something to at least think about when I didn't always.
Yeah, that's
Got
a great
that.
one.
Okay, speed round.
Speed round. Unless, Val, is there any other topics that you want to bring up or any questions you want to feed us?
Geez, no. Thank you, though.
Any songs you want to break
Okay.
out into?
Songs I want to break
Ooh,
up.
yes.
Oh, no. I promised,
No?
but I'm going to break my promise. Okay. Give 'em the old razzle-dazzle, razzle-dazzle 'em. Yeah, jazz hands.
Yes.
That's all I'm good.
Love it.
But I do like that song.
That's
Anyway,
great. Yeah, they did that show at 2 high schools last year. We went to both of them, and it's so good. Kids are obsessed.
It's a fun show. Chicago. Maybe it's because it's where I'm from, Chicago. I have to learn how to say that.
Oh, there you
differently.
go.
All right.
Okay.
Speed round.
Speed round. All right, rapid fire. I'll go first. If your career was a movie, who plays you, Val?
Meryl Streep. No, I'm kidding.
Totally.
Kathy Bates. How about Kathy Bates? I like that.
Oh, Kathy Bates is great. Meryl Streep is great, too.
Yeah,
I like it.
I think either one. Yep. What's your favorite KPI?
Oh, my God. Abandoned cart.
Ooh, that's a good one. What's the last book you read?
Oh, my God. Playing to Win. It's a
Okay.
book about strategy. I know, boring business.
It's not like the How to Win at Blackjack in Vegas.
No, sorry.
Okay. All right.
That would be a good book to read.
What's your favorite productivity hack?
Wow, that's a tough one. Favorite productivity hack?
Besides
Not
Starbucks.
keeping lists. I don't know. I don't keep lists. No, I think that that's really important, so I'm going to just go on it. To-do lists, my spouse calls them to-don't lists because there's just, you can just get crazy. So I don't believe in to-do lists. I just do.
Val, who is the most fascinating contact on your phone?
Oh, these are good questions. These are hard questions.
Well, certainly the artist you repped, probably.
Oh my God, yeah.
In the
well,
first season of The Voice.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I still have her in there, although she doesn't talk to me, but no, I'm just kidding. I'm just going to say Danny Muscaplat. That's probably the
Oh,
best,
love that.
most intriguing contact I have in my phone.
I like it. I'll allow it.
If you could be famous for one thing, what would it be?
These are hard questions. I would be famous for inventing a way for everyone to have an 8th day in the week.
Ooh. Yes. You win. Is there something that you've always dreamed of doing but have never done?
You know, I think that any of those extreme sports, so I watch them, you know, all of the crazy snowboarding and I don't know, all of that. It's all very intriguing to me, but I've never done any of them. So that's what I would say.
First job and worst job.
First job was the mailroom at my mother's company, Worst job, I think I've been pretty lucky. But I guess selling magazine subscriptions over the phone. Worst job, that would be it.
Lots of hang-ups?
Oh, yeah. and just the environment. I mean, it was a true boiler room, these little itty-bitty, rows of these little desks, lots of people, these cards in front of you. I mean, this was in the day, right? So, like a phone on your desk and these cards with people's names and phone numbers on them. It was terrible. I didn't like that.
Oh, my God. Yeah, that sounds horrible. What's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
I don't know. Boy, you guys are tough, man. I mean, I really do appreciate it when somebody just tells me good job, because I think I'm kind of hard on myself. And I'm like Woody Allen, I wouldn't want to be in that club if they'd want to have me, So
yeah,
I mean, if somebody tells me good job and I appreciate them, then I appreciate that.
Awesome.
That's great.
Describe yourself, and by the way, Val, you're doing a great job. You're killing it.
Yeah, you are doing
We
a great
all
job.
talk about it all the time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Describe yourself in 5 words.
So the first thing that came to my mind is very lucky to be here. So
That's nice. I think we got to end on that. That's awesome.
For
all
sure.
Thank you, Val.
Well, thank you both. This has been fun. And
Yeah,
I'll
it
just
has
say
been.
that you are both awesome. So I really appreciate both of you very much, and the work that we've done together over the years and the friendship that we've developed over the years. So really, really mean that.
Amen
You
to
guys
that.
are great. And this is what it's about, right? Is like getting your community and having the people that you can talk with and work with. So it's been fun.
Thank you for staying tuned. If you're enjoying these conversations, we would so appreciate if you would subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us to increase the podcast's reach. Thank you. See you next week with more inspiring stories. This episode of Marketing Heroes is brought to you by The Search Guru, produced by Circle Audio, and podcast cover art by Andra Lazord.